What's up, Houston Illini? Welcome to the 3-in-1 show, where we interview and feature a variety of University of Illinois alumni who are now living and thriving right here in Houston, Texas. Today, our featured guest is a marketing service representative at Blue Cross Blue Shield and also an Illinois football alum. And we are here. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his experience at Illinois, about his life here now and his career here in Houston. Real quickly before we get started, a reminder on how our show works. At any sporting event at the University of Illinois, you may remember the halftime performance by the Marching Illini. That was broken down into three distinct parts called the 3-in-1, ending with the alma mater. And our show is called the 3-in-1 show to honor that tradition as well. So we will also break our show into three parts as well. We're going to talk to our guest about how they chose the University of Illinois, what their experience was like when they got here, and then what brought them to Houston, what's their career look like today. So no matter how you're watching, please subscribe, follow, make sure you don't miss any of our new guests coming up. Without any further ado, Will Judson, welcome to the show.
Brian, it's a pleasure to be here, and it just feels good to get a chance to talk a little bit about my time at Illinois up to this point. And so it's we're in Houston, Texas. The weather is great now.
Yeah.
So it's time to play a little golf before it gets too hot outside. So I'm just enjoying myself.
Okay, before we bounce off, we got to set up a golf tee time or something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Well, most of the guests that I've talked to so far on the show, Illinois alums, but a lot of them came from Illinois. You're not from Illinois originally.
Correct. I'm from Georgia. A small, well, not small. I'm just south of the city, about 20 minutes south of Atlanta, in Fayetteville. I know on my profile for football it says Riverdale, Georgia, but it's actually Fayetteville, Georgia, which is right down the road from Riverdale. And as far as Fayetteville is concerned, it's very much like your typical suburb. I did a little bit of everything growing up, was involved in all kinds of sports. I went to Sandy Creek High School, which is a very good school in the Fayette County school system down there in the Atlanta area. And we had a really good football program. And so I got to that school. That was part of the reason why I moved from we lived in Florida originally. My dad played for the Miami Dolphins. So we moved up to Atlanta from Miami because that's where my dad was originally from. And when it came time to choosing what school district, what side of town we wanted to live on, we looked at the academic side of things as far as, getting ready for college, prepping for college, and then also a good athletic program. And Sandy Creek was a fairly new school, and we liked the coaching staff there. And so I went there and did great. Led me to where I'm at now. So I had a great time growing up in Fayetteville, just a typical suburb with just myself and my sister, with our two parents. So it was great.
At Illinois, you were a receiver.
Yes.
What all positions did you play in high school?
Yes. So I did a little bit of everything in high school. I returned kicks, punts, played offense and defense. And I actually even though I was a wide receiver in college and that was the primary position in high school, I made All-State as an athlete, quote unquote, or kick return, punt return. And so we had a lot of good players on our team. I played opposite of Calvin Johnson, Hall of Fame receiver from Detroit, or the Detroit Lions. And so we had to make sure we were getting him the ball because you know what kind of player he is. And then we had a great All-State running back as well. So we had to do a good job of spreading the wealth and being able to, keep everybody happy. So
I'm imagining like 70-point, 80-point games for your high school. Is that? I mean, you just throw it up to Calvin Johnson and then you take the top off of it. So.
Absolutely. I mean, you would think that we were scoring a lot of points. I think we averaged between like 35 and 40 points a game. But you got to think about it, Brian. This is from, when I played varsity from 2002 to 2003, 2004. So we were very much still a run heavy offense. We had a quarterback that could get us the ball. But we were run heavy. We had a great running back, and so our running back would run for 2,000 yards. I think Calvin, the most yards Calvin might have had in a season was around 700 or 800 yards. But like you said, every time it was time to go make a big play, we just throw it up there and he would go get it. So definitely, we didn't throw it as much as I would have liked at the time, but now everybody's running the spread offense, and so I would imagine now if we were playing, we'd probably be throwing for 3,000 or 4,000 yards in a season.
Now, you didn't go to Illinois right off the bat. You went to Florida A&M, if I'm remembering it correct.
Yes. And so I'll tell you a little bit about my recruiting process. So
Sure.
Coming out of high school, I was on the smaller side, 5'8", probably 150 pounds soaking wet, right? But I was one of the fastest, I don't toot my own horn, but I was one of the fastest prospects in the country. And so
what
that's
was
what
your
kind
40
of
time at that time?
So at that time, when I was a little bit lighter, I was, as far as weight is concerned, I was running anywhere consistently that summer going into my senior year, anywhere from 4.2 flat to about 4.29. So I was always a sub 4.3 runner coming out of high school. Now, when I got to college, and I'll go back to my recruiting in just a second, when I got to college and got bigger and stronger, I was still running high 4.2s, but it was more the low 4.3. So at our pro day for the preparing for the NFL draft, I think my official time was 4.31 or 4.32. So I bulked up a little bit, had a few injuries in college, and that kind of slowed me down a little bit, but I was still moving. Right. So getting back to my recruiting in high school, coming out, I had your typical schools all over the country recruiting me. But the schools that I was really taking a hard look at was, when I think back on it, it was Duke University, the University of Memphis, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech. But the consensus amongst most, all of the coaches was, we want you to come in and play DB, defensive back, cornerback, because I was very good on defense, but that wasn't really something that I was really trying to do. I'd do it if I had to. And so Florida A&M at the time, that's at HBCU, historically Black College University, as you know. At the time, they had just made, a year before it was time for me to go to college, they announced that they were going Division I, moving up to the Division I ranks. And so I was talking to your bigger schools, really considering Georgia Tech and Wake Forest. But like I said, they wanted me to kind of do something I didn't want to do. And so I figured, you know what? I'll go to Florida A&M, chart my own path. They were, telling me I could do everything. Return kicks and punts my freshman year, play an offense and defense. If I wanted to play defense, they were, they recruited me hard. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to make my own path. I'm going to go to Florida A&M. They're going Division I. We're playing that Division I schedule the next year, which we did. And that's what I did. I went there, but shortly after I got there, they announced that they were moving back into Division I AA. So that was a bummer in a sense for me, but still I had a chance to play early. And the ironic thing about that is the first game of the year, we played the University of Illinois. And so I remember the first game I was returning a kickoff, and Jason Rita was the kicker. They kicked it off. We were playing in Memorial Stadium, and before the game, I was just looking around. I was like, I wish I would have considered Illinois. They sent me some recruiting mail back when I was, in high school. I was thinking it might not have been bad coming up here. And so, we went on and played. I think the game ended up, I have a good memory, I think you all beat us that year, like 52-13 or something, but it was like 31-0 at halftime. And I was thinking to myself, I should be on the other sideline. And so it's funny how things kind of turned to where it ended up.
I think I remember that game. Did you
that
have
might have been your freshman year?
Yeah. Did you have a really big, really loud band that came with?
Yes. That's what the promotion was for the game. We were bringing our band up there. Yeah.
Okay, because it that might have, I don't know if that was like right around the Drumline movie time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think there was some correlation there, and I've never, and even to this day, heard that much sound coming out of a band. It was crazy.
I'm older now, but I think they call it the Marching 100. I think, but I can't remember. But it's a big band and it's loud.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
so
So I think at this time Illinois was going through a transition at head coach, right? So
yes, so it was a perfect match.
right.
So I was looking, and let me just get back to Florida A&M really
Yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah. Sorry.
So when I found out that they kind of changed their minds on what they were doing from a Division I standpoint, that was the first thing that made me start wanting to look and explore other opportunities.
Hmm.
The other thing was, and this is just me at the time, I know Florida A&M is a great program now, and what they're doing on the 1AA level. But at the time, with knowing how I was used to a lot of structure. Um, and I'll leave it at that. I knew at Florida A&M I needed to be somewhere that fit what I needed on and off the football field. And so I just knew, Florida A&M is so much fun. Did a lot of partying down there. I knew if I would have stayed down there, who knows where I would be, right now. So I talked to my parents about it, and I was like, hey, I need to get somewhere where I have a little bit more support on and off the field. And so I opened my recruiting back up. And so
Uh-huh.
I reached out to some of the schools that recruited me in high school,
Yeah.
and a couple of schools really came out that I was considering, and one was the University of Illinois. I knew Ron Zook was going there. Ron Zook didn't recruit me that much in high school. He was more so at our school to look at Calvin. But what happened with a lot of coaches when they would come in and recruit Calvin, they would say, okay, well, who's that little number 9 out there? And because I was always popping on film as well, so he was familiar with me. But I sent him my high school tape, college tape, and then the University of Arkansas. Houston Nutt was the coach at the time, and so
Hmm.
Arkansas told me, you can come here. This isn't like the transfer portal nowadays where you can go right in and immediately play. I had to, wherever I was going, if I was transferring up, I was going to have to sit out a year.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yep. And so what it came down to, I visited both schools. I visited Arkansas. I loved it. SEC, I'm very familiar with that conference growing up in Georgia. But one thing that kind of stuck out to me, Houston Nutt told me, Will, we'd love to have you. You can come here. You can run track. You can play football. But being that you're sitting out this first year, we're going to have to, we won't be able to give you a scholarship the first year. You'll have to pay your way. And so Ron Zook, one of the things that him and Coach Loxley, Mike Loxley was the guy who primarily recruited me. He's the head coach
Yeah.
at the University of Maryland now.
Right.
He was the offensive coordinator at the time. They told me, come here, and if you come in here and do what you're supposed to do, we're going to give you a scholarship. And so that's what I did. I trusted them. I came up here, and I had when I first got to Illinois, I had a great camp. I was showing my ability, and we tried to petition the NCAA to see if I could get on the field my first year, but obviously that didn't happen. And so I sat out and had a chance to kind of just get adjusted to the academic rigors of the university, as well as being 10, 11, 12 hours away from home. So that was a little bit of an adjustment for me. And I got very sick my first semester at Illinois. I think I had like viral meningitis. It was bad.
Oh.
And so, yeah, I had to go home for a couple of weeks. And that when I went home, I literally wasn't doing any schoolwork, and I almost got on academic probation the first year because I was just, I was so sick trying to adjust to being away from home and being on a constant, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. schedule with academics and athletics. It was an adjustment for me. But after that first semester, when I got settled in, started making the academic honor roll and started thriving from there. So
what was it that kind of got you kicked back in that right plane, in the right direction?
Well, I'd say the main thing is Coach Loxley sat me down and said, hey, you made a few too many C's this first semester, and if you don't get it going, you're not going to be eligible. And so, as you know, for different majors that you want to get into at the university, you have to have a certain GPA. And so when you get a C, I feel like at Illinois, we didn't have the plus minus system. If you got C, it was 2 points. And so that's not good enough. And so that was really the main thing. It was a wake-up call. And I knew that I wanted to play, and I knew I was good enough to be on the field. So I didn't want to go back home. I didn't know what I was going to do if I went back home. So that was pretty much the biggest thing. And then the other motivation for me, I know, my parents have taught me, and it's something that I firmly believe in. You shouldn't compare yourself to others, but you can't help to do it when you're in sports. When you have your peers, people that you play with, and you see them all over the country making plays. I played with Calvin Johnson. So the first game he's on the field at Tech, he's making plays. And I'm like, this is a guy I grew up with and played with. I want to be out there doing the same thing because I know what I can do. So that was motivation in itself. And then after that first semester, I just kind of hit the ground running and was good to go from an academic standpoint.
And so the following year, you're coming in and playing in Illinois. What was that like? Your first experience in that stadium on the orange and blue side of it rather than the Florida A&M side of it.
Man, just running out of that tunnel at Memorial Stadium, I felt like I was in the pros. I felt that's what I felt like. And so it just felt good. And just thinking about how things turned, my first game in college was at Memorial Stadium. And then I knew that I finished my career there. Being around the different athletes, don't get me wrong, we had great players at Florida A&M as well. But I think the main difference between Illinois and Florida A&M or, any major conference football team is the depth, the talent. You might be able to go with a few players. You can match them talent for talent between one level and the top level, but it's the depth where you keep bringing in the different players that are just as good as the first string. That was the thing that was probably the biggest eye opener for me.
Man, there was some really heavy hitters. Like Zook could bring in some talent now.
Absolutely.
Who
Absolutely.
in your mind who's the most talented guys in the locker room when you were around?
From a talent standpoint, that's a tough question. I mean, we had so many players. When I think back of all the players that were drafted while I was there, probably the one that sticks out to me the most, I'll name a few. Mm-hmm. First of all, Aurelius Ben, he was a great player. He was big. He was 6'2", 215, 220 pounds, very strong, explosive, could catch the ball, and he was just a dog. I mean, you could line him up in the backfield, give him the ball, he's going to get the first down. You can put him in the slot, give him the ball, he's going to do what he can, to win the game. So he sticks out to me. But probably the most talented player, I mean, even before the Zook guys, just going back looking at Pierre Thomas, when Ron Turner brought him in. You talk about a guy that's not that big. He was 5'10", 5'11", 215 pounds at Illinois. I think he lost a little weight when he got to the league, but you talk about a player that could do everything: catch the football out of the backfield, runs hard, never tackled by one guy.
He was Alan a good Ball. Name.
Oh, he was 6'2", 185, 190 pounds, could run like a gazelle, great footwork. So that was some of the players from the Turner era. And then when you think about Ron Zook, I talked a little bit about Aurelius Ben. Yep. Martez Wilson was another one who was big and fast, but probably the one that sticks out the most to me is Vontae Davis. You talk about a guy who was just an athletic freak, and God rest his soul. He was a great guy individually. His work ethic, his attitude, his athletic skills. He was great in the locker room. And so, first of all, just hearing that news, it shook me in a different way because, he and I had a personal relationship. We used to go against each other every day in practice. But so my thoughts and prayers are with his family, and that hit me a different way when I found that news out. But getting back to him athletically, a guy who was 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, one of the strongest players on the team. He was running in the 4.3s and could cover, because a lot of times you'll run into players that are athletically gifted, but it doesn't translate to the field. But he from the minute he got on campus, him and a couple other players in that 2006 recruiting class, they're really, Juice Williams included, those are the guys that kind of set the program on a path that got us eventually to the Rose Bowl. Those kids, the freshmen, they came in, they were staying after practice, working hard, putting in the work, and that kind of just took the rest of the team, and we got the buy-in to eventually make that run that we made in 2008.
Who are the guys that were setting that tone for the culture? Like extra reps, extra passes, like after practice stuff.
Oh, one of the main ones I'd say the older guys,
Mhm.
Jay Lehman, the linebacker, he was a
Right.
big time leader. Vontae Davis, Trayvon Bellamy, Justin Harrison, Kevin Juice Mitchell, all of those guys. Because we had been losing a lot of games right before Zook got there, and we wanted to make that change. And so once Vontae and Trayvon Bellamy and guys like that came in that first day of workouts and were working out after practice, it was like, everybody just started doing it. Everybody caught on, and the culture changed with a quickness.
You could feel it on campus too, and you could feel it in the attitude of the players and the way that the media covered it, the things that you guys were saying, the things the coaches were saying, that Illinois football having not been good for a minute, taking that turn, moving the needle over to the positive, it was almost immediate from at least maybe it wasn't from the win standpoint immediately, but from a culture standpoint and the way it felt, the excitement to go to games, to see you guys play and perform, something good was going to happen every weekend. It was just a great feeling for guys like me. I got my shirt on just for you, but
Yeah, yeah. And I got this on for you,
yeah,
But yeah, you hit it right on the head, Brian. It was, that first year I think we went 2-10, but the 2-10 was different compared to the past. There were games where we got killed. I think it might have been a night game. It might have been our homecoming too. We played Penn State. They beat us like 60-13. So
it's
we
like
had some bad
63 to
losses in
10
there.
or some bad, like it was
Yeah, it was
bad.
bad. It was a national TV game
Mhm.
on ESPN. We had some bad losses in there, but then we had the losses like when we played Ohio State. They beat us. That was the number one team in the country. They beat us 17-10. And so we were in every game, and it was just different. The strength and conditioning program played a big factor in that. Coach Lou Hernandez, and so we were out there. We were losing, but we were going to beat you up in the loss, right? So I remember I talked to a guy from Missouri a couple years later after we finished playing, and he was saying, man, you guys were the biggest and strongest team we played all season. And so that was one thing that immediately made a change for us, the strength and conditioning. And then, like you said, we made a big jump. It didn't translate in wins that first year, but the second year is when it really popped. And I
For
think
sure.
that was kind of when you look back on it, for the following years, that was to our detriment a little bit because we had so much early success. The year after that, we kind of got a little bit, quote unquote, big for our britches and didn't, continue to work on what the foundation was that got us to where we were. So, we went to the Rose Bowl in 2007, 2008 season. And then the next season, we ended up going 5-7. But again, when Zook was there, Brian, that was like the longest span where, after the Rose Bowl and then a couple of quote unquote down years, they started going to bowl games back to back to back.
For
I
sure.
remember down here in the Texas Bowl against Baylor, they beat RG3 and company,
Yep.
RG3, Josh Gordon, all of those guys. So
And that was a
Zook,
huge deal.
yeah. Zook really had the program rolling. And I think, when you look back on it now, he's a little bit more underappreciated than he needs more credit, because when you look at all the coaches that we've had now, and Coach Bielema is doing a great job now, and I see him doing the same things that Zook was doing. Ron Zook was very successful at Illinois.
Uh, just the Rose Bowl alone gives you the longevity of his tenure there. I Anybody can be on one side of the fence or the other on getting or having him be let go, but there's no doubt that he brought the excitement back to Illinois football. Uh, the recruit, there's proof in it, right? The talent that was in those locker rooms, we can recruit talent back here at Illinois, and got the people on campus really excited about it. So I
Absolutely.
mean, guys like that change cultures, change the whole environment, change the athletic department. It was fantastic to be a part of. What I wanted
I
to
feel
ask you, Rose Bowl wise. And there was a couple of other big games that year. You mentioned Ohio State earlier. That was my second favorite game to the Rose Bowl, probably because we won that game, but the Rose Bowl was an awesome experience. What's it like going and winning at Ohio State?
Oh, it was just a great experience, as a whole. When we got in there, nobody goes into the game saying we're going to lose. But when we went in there and, you got 105,000 people, screaming at the top of their lungs, and you look across the field and you've got guys like James Laurinaitis. I can go on and on. I'm not going to name their team. We know how Ohio State is. Yeah. All Americans across the board. Mm-hmm. Cam Hayward, he was in there. It's something that you'll never forget. I didn't play a ton that game. I got in like maybe 5 or 6 snaps on offense that game, and then did play some special teams. But it just seemed like we should have went and played the lottery that night. Everything was going our way. Juice was looking like Joe Montana out there, just throwing dimes all over the field. My roommate Marcus Wilkins, he caught a touchdown, a long ball. It was amazing. I think Jacob Willis caught a touchdown, a deep post. We were primarily a running team, so we ran it down their throat with Rashard Mendenhall and Juice Williams. We did that. But also
we haven't even mentioned Rashard yet from a talent perspective.
I forgot about him. He was excellent too. I forgot him and Vontae. I would say were probably the best athletes. Him, Vontae, and see. The problem is when we talk about how Zook recruited, each guy. There are so many people I could go back to. So, but yes, it's just we had a great experience out there. And then after we won the game, to have as many fans that we did that traveled to the game and to go celebrate with them in the stands, it's something you'll never forget. It's hard to put it into words.
Transitioning back to the Rose Bowl experience, but from a fan perspective, like being able to go to the big return of Illinois football, it was just representative of that from a fan perspective, from a U perspective, from a player perspective. Getting there, what's that signify to the guys in the locker room?
To us, it was for me at least, it was like, okay, we're finally here. We're making noise at Illinois, but also it was a wake-up call, because basically what happened all throughout that week, we were out there practicing for a week. We had to do a lot of different things with USC. Right. We went to Disneyland. We were there while USC was there. And so the biggest thing for me is that when I looked over there and saw those guys, and then when I saw them on the field, that helped me understand, like, this is big time football, and there's definitely levels to this, if that makes sense. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier when I was comparing a Florida A&M or any school on the 1AA level to a Division I program in a major conference.
Yep.
That was the same difference I felt like USC had on us. Their depth is what killed us. If you look at the first half, the game was fairly close. We had a couple of turnovers, which kind of gave them that, 2-score lead. But they kept on bringing in waves of players.
Yep.
They had, I think John David Booty was the quarterback. He was the number 1 quarterback in the nation when I came out.
Yep.
And then after him, they were bringing in Mark Sanchez, who was a a top 5 pick, right?
Who was their running back at the time? They ran that.
He was a true freshman, Joe McKnight. He was in there. And rest in peace to Joe McKnight too. I mean, they had him. They just had, I think Dwayne Jarrett had just came out the year before, but they had Patrick Turner, Taylor Mays on defense. Oh. They had a bunch of players. And so to me, besides the pageantry of the game, right? You look out there, outside the stadium, or when you're standing in the field, you can see I think it's the San Andreas Mountains in the background, San Gabriel, whatever it is, those mountains out there. Just how everything looks. And then you see in the bowl how you've got the maroon colors of USC and their fans, and then it's almost split in half where you've got all of the orange and blue for Illinois. So just seeing the pageantry of the game, all of the press on the sideline, Brent Musburger, Kirk Herbstreit, all those guys. It just,
cool.
to me, it's like, okay, we've arrived. But then I'm telling you, Brian, as soon as that game kicked off, you snap out of that and it's just football. But you also recognize it's definitely levels to this. They were strong, they were fast, they hit hard. And this is a Pac-12 team. And, at the time, this was USC in their heyday. So that was the biggest thing.
Well, we were good, and we had, to our whole pretty much conversation, we're talking about the level of talent in our roster, but they had a level of talent that was professional level of talent across the board. And I didn't want to talk about it. We got why. Okay. Yeah. You know the number.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, those games like that stick out in your head, but
right.
Again, I don't think, at the end of the day, we were upset. But we looked at that as a building block. We see what it takes now. If you want to get to that elite level and be an elite program, this is what it looks like. And so I think we use that as experience and motivation for the next years.
So usually I'll ask this kind of question towards the end of the conversation, but I'm interested to hear, knowing what you've gone through, knowing what that looked like to you, you see it, you see that line on the upswing of success and having things work, starting to get the ball moving, getting some momentum. What's your best piece of advice to players that are in the locker room now that have been in Illinois for a little bit and have experienced this tier of success? How do they take it to the next level? What are you talking to them about?
Well, I would say the main thing is, times are different now compared to when I played. There are so many distractions nowadays. Social media, name, image, likeness, NIL. I'd say those are the two biggest things that can deter and distract players. Women, whatever it may be, chasing girls, doing whatever you do in your extracurricular activities. And so I'm just going to say the saying that I hear a lot nowadays from a lot of football programs: keep the main thing the main thing. And what I mean by that is, why you're here. Obviously, you want to get a degree from the University of Illinois. You can't beat that. But you're here because you got a scholarship. You play football, right? And so if you whatever you're trying to do, if you're trying to just get your degree and go on and work in the work world, that's fine. You got to make sure you're doing your job on the football field so you keep your scholarship. It's keeping the main thing the main thing. So if you're there to make it to the NFL or win the Big Ten championship, whatever it is, you always want to keep the team goals first, and all of your individual goals are going to fall where they need to fall. But keeping the main thing and not getting distracted. And this is a time with all these distractions that we have, out there in the world, outside of the locker room. Mm-hmm. This is when we have to come together and remember what our goals are and just chip away each day, get better at your craft and do your job. And I think everything will fall in place the way it's supposed to be. So
I love that, man. So we've kind of come to the end of the conversation around your time at Illinois. What do you look back and go, man, I love that moment? What was that? What is that for you?
Well, I had a lot of great moments besides the relationships and the people that I met while I was at the University of Illinois. Putting that aside, from a personal standpoint, I would say probably my best moment was national TV, my redshirt senior year against Missouri. I think I finished the game with 177 yards and caught a couple touchdowns. And first game of the year, I'll never forget how I felt, because thinking about where I came from, where I was at Florida A&M, got to Illinois, was in and out of the lineup, hadn't really carved out an every down role until my senior year, playing, every day or every down at receiver. And so thinking about how far I came to this point, it was like a culmination of everything. I'll never forget getting back on the bus in St. Louis and driving back. And this is back when we had cell phones, but it's not like how it is now. But I had like 200 text messages back then on, I think I had like a Trio, whatever that cell phone was called. I'll never forget that. I was just so proud that day. And my family drove from Atlanta all the way to St. Louis to watch me
Ooh,
play. And
nice.
so that's probably my most memorable moment, being at Illinois.
I love that, man. Um, what was your favorite place to eat at in
Ooh, that's a
Champaign?
tough one. That's a
Yeah.
tough one. I would say we did Justin Harrison. He was my roommate. We ate a lot of Monocle's pizza back in the day. So I don't. We didn't have a lot of money, so maybe I thought that was good, and it might not be good now. But I would say probably Monocle's. We ate a lot of pizza back then, but we ate at Training Table too. So I mean, I don't know.
I was just about to say, is that on the
Yeah,
nutrition list?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really, when I think about food and Champagne, I can't really think of a favorite. I'm getting old now. I can't remember.
Yeah. All right. So we're moving away from college. Let's talk about where were you going afterwards? What was
Okay.
in your head? What did you want to do? What direction did you end up going there?
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing I did after college is I had a cup of coffee on the professional level, stuck my toe in the water, seeing how
Mhm.
it was. I was kind of, I had a shot, so I was going to pursue the opportunity, but I was kind of, at that point feeling like I was ready to do something else. So bounced around in training camp in the NFL with the Detroit Lions, got released, and then I went up to Canada and played a little bit for the Toronto Argonauts. And then after that,
Was Calvin Johnson at camp then
yep,
with
he
you?
was.
Yeah,
He was, but it
I
was
guess
like
that would have been
rookie
fun.
mini camp. So they didn't have the veterans working out. So he was there, but Matthew Stafford got drafted
Mm.
that year. So he was out there, all the rookies that they drafted, and then other players that they brought into camp. So yeah, got a chance to be up there and see what it was like. Now if I would have been a early first, early round pick, my motivation would have been a little bit different. But at that point, I wasn't really somebody that was willing to be grinding, working out, not knowing if I'm going to get a shot or a call. So at that point, Brian, I had to think about what my next step was going to be. And so I went home back to Atlanta. And I remember I got home, my mom told me, welcome back, take 6 months, take half a year, or however long you need, just kind of relax, get settled down at home. And then you need to figure out what you're going to do. Right. And
Mhm.
so that's what I did. I literally, because I had been used to so much structure and always having to do something when I was in college, to where I just literally hung out at the house with my mother, was playing video games every day, applying to jobs, starting to think about what I wanted to do. And then it took me literally 6 months on the dot. And what do people do usually when they're faced with a little adversity and don't know what they want to do? They kind of resort back to what they're familiar with. So what I did was I decided to get back involved with football. So I went and coached for a year. I decided I wanted to get another degree, pursue my master's degree. So I figured I would get a graduate assistant coaching job somewhere. Um, I coached 1 year at Hampton University, but decided coaching wasn't really something I wanted to do. And so I got involved on the student athlete development side, the player development side of things, where you help student athletes with everything outside of the football world. So I went back home to Georgia State University, got my master's degree. I majored in sport management at University of Illinois, and then I got my master's degree in sport administration at Georgia State. Worked with the football team there. They had just launched a new football program. Bill Curry was the coach.
Mhm.
He coached in the 80s and 90s at Georgia Tech and some other places. And so got my degree there, worked at the university for a while, and then decided, you know what? I want to do something else. I've been involved with sports my whole life. Uh, let's get out in the private sector, in the business world, and try something else. So I leveraged some relationships and was able to get a job working in on the property and casualty side for insurance. And so I
Okay.
worked for this company named Assurant for about 6 years in sales as a district manager, where I went around to what we call my accounts or book of business, where I was going around training them on how to sell different products. And that was good because I was always involved in like team settings from football and different things that I'd done in my life. So it was easy being able to go in, talk to people, relate to different people with different backgrounds, and kind of just train them on how to sell. And that's what I did for 6 years. That's
Now,
what's
were you
actually brought me out
here?
to Houston.
Okay,
That's
that's what I was
yeah,
thinking. Okay.
yeah, that's what brought me to Houston. I moved to Houston in 2017. Um, and so I worked that job from 2017 to 2022. I worked the first year in Atlanta, 2016, and then moved out here in 2017. And so I did that in 2022, and then we merged with another company, and some jobs got eliminated. My job being one of the jobs that were eliminated. And so then again, I took some time to kind of reset and figure out what I wanted to do next. And then I landed on my feet with the company I'm with now, Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Now you've been there about a year, if I'm remembered right. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I've been there a year, and so the official name for the position is marketing service representative. But
Sure.
most companies have their own kind of spin on what the role is or what the name of the role is. But at the end of the day, what the job is it's an account manager,
Mm,
and or project manager. And so what I do on a day-to-day basis, Brian, is I work on the large group um employer benefits sector, if that makes sense. So what I'm doing is I'm just helping manage the day-to-day operations for their benefits for large group employers. So that's like anywhere from it's like up to like 300 or 400 employees, bigger companies.
okay.
What I do on a day-to-day basis, Brian, is
Yeah.
basically manage the day-to-day operations of their benefits. So I'll give you a quick example. If there's a company where they decide, hey, Will, we want to add um, contraceptives to our benefit plan next year. Can you do that for me? Absolutely. Let me work on getting that implemented into your um, plan. Or maybe it's someone has a question where they have an employee that goes to the doctor, and for whatever reason, the doctor is saying they owe X amount of dollars on their deductible. He shouldn't be paying for this XYZ. They'll give us a call and we'll kind of work things out for them. So the main goal at the end of the day, it's still sales, right? What we're doing is providing them service and hopefully an enjoyable experience so that they renew their benefits with us the next year. And then also, we're what our job is to do is go out and cold call and get new companies, new businesses to come use the benefits of Blue Cross Blue Shield. So
So
I do a little bit of everything.
give me a sense of who needs to come talk to you. Who's that ideal person that you can help right now?
I would say anybody that is interested in business, anyone that's in sales, people that, for instance, if you're, let's say we have people that graduate from school in HR, somebody like that, that if you're looking for an internship or just wanting to get involved on the benefit side of things, you come out and reach out to me. I can kind of point you in the direction, connect you with different people on the benefit side of things, but then also people that are in sales, account management, project management. We do a little bit of all of that here at Blue Cross Blue Shield. We have interns all the time that come in and work with us in the summer on various projects. But really, if you look at everybody that I work with, at least we all have different backgrounds, different degrees. Um, and so it's based off of your experience. And at the end of the day, can you come in and work in a team setting? Can you communicate well? Are you professional? We like to network, get out and meet people, go and talk to different companies to try to secure their business. So really, we're just looking for well-rounded people.
So if you're graduating from the University of Illinois right now and you happen to run across this video somehow, and you want a good opportunity to work at a really solidified company here across the country, but here in Texas, and you really want an in with somebody, is that, I mean, it sounds like they could just come to you and talk to you about a potential opportunity to start their career off, and a good one at that.
Without a doubt. You can reach right out to me on my LinkedIn. It's Will Judson. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Just reach out to me. But yes, Blue Cross Blue Shield is an excellent company. Um, Times are, around the country, when you look at where we're at from an economy standpoint, this company continues to thrive and grow. All you have to do is kind of just look up, what we're doing from a fiscal standpoint and see that this is a company that's been around for forever and we're continuing to grow. And I am so glad that I'm involved with this company now. And here's the thing about it, Brian. The only reason why I'm working here, obviously, I've put in the work and I've garnered enough experience over the years to get to where I'm at.
right.
But an Illinois alum is who helped me get the job. And so that's why, and his name is Marcus Wilkins. I know him very well. He played football at Illinois too. But that's what you have to do when you're in college. And I wish I did a little bit more of that, getting outside of that football bubble and leveraging those relationships that you make while you're in school. And so, again, just reach out to me and we can kind of point you in the right direction here at Blue Cross Blue Shield, because that is very important. Getting out and talking to people, to put yourself in a position to get to where you want to be in the professional force, at least.
Man, I love that. And he's here in Houston. Am I right? Yeah.
He is. He is. He lives out in Manville, which is about 15 minutes from me. I'm actually just outside of Houston. I'm in Alvin, but yeah, he was just at my house last week. He brings his kids over and play, or his daughter over and play, and she plays with my kids, and he's doing really well. He's been with the company now for like 5, 6, 7 years. But yeah, he's out here in Houston, and I'm so thankful that he and I have the relationship we have.
I love that, man. Well, I'll usually kind of give this opportunity when we have a guest on to just talk. If there's one thing, like a personal plug, something that you're involved in that maybe you want to talk about, something you got a passion about, uh, floor is yours.
Uh, I'm not the only thing that I would say is, I'm always looking, because I'm from Atlanta,
Hmm.
so I'm always looking to kind of meet people that are like-minded. So I think the Houston Illini Club is great. Feel free to reach out to me sometime. I'm always trying to, grow my network, and not always just to hang out with, always have to hang out with my wife's friends. That's not a bad thing, but I want to make more friends while I'm out here. So, the only thing I would say, as Brian, I'm
Hmm.
involved in real estate. I do have my license in real estate, so I'm involved in that sense. So I'm looking to meet people in that field as well. But there's nothing really personal that I'm working on right now. I do have some things in mind, but I'm not going to speak on that right now. But the main thing is just feel free to give me a shout anytime.
Speaking of building your network up, the Houston Illini Club does have a business networking event next Thursday, May 2nd at the Red Lion, and that's over in the Montrose area. And another couple upcoming events. A volunteer opportunity, books between kids on Saturday, May 4th. That's packing and stacking and shipping some books out for kids across Houston. And then the Big Ten Houston Club's first annual Bowling for Soup tournament, which is a charity fundraiser for the Houston Food Bank. So that's coming up. I will bring this to the close and say, this is kind of a Houston alumni, or I'm sorry, a Houston Illini Club focus. We're trying to bring the Houston Illini alumni family closer together, and our club hosts a ton of events, some of which we just listed off here. But whether it's Illinois game watch parties for the football team, or we're trying to raise scholarships for a Houston area graduating student, um, business networking, whatever that is, we are trying to bring all Illinois alums that live in Houston much closer together. Um, this has brought me into conversation with Will, and I'm really happy to connect with him over the years, being back here in Houston. having some shared classes in Champaign. But thank you, Will, for being here today. I appreciate you sharing the message of the Houston Illini Club, and I'm looking forward to connecting soon. Let's play some golf. What do you say?
No doubt about it. I gotta get my driver together, but I'll be looking forward to it.
All right, man. That's the end of the show. We appreciate you coming. ILL.